So here he is. It's nice to talk to champions, especially champions I don't know, even though I've seen your name on the leaderboards. But Darren, pleasure to meet you. Takedown. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here. You cut out for a split second for me. I don't know if that was for everybody.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so I was just excited that you were able to go for the jugular. Was that like when you play these games, are you thinking first or second every time like me, or are you more somebody that just kind of like looks at the card and says, we'll see where I want to go?
No, it's first or second. I mean, first, hopefully, every time. If it's second, it's, a mistake because someone catches me at the end or I just, bet wrong effectively.
Yeah. So are you targeting like a number each time, or is it just kind of based on the way the board's playing, or what?
Yeah, I mean, look, usually it's right. 10x is sort of like the rule of thumb every time. Um, but it changes over the course of the tournament. I don't typically, I guess, necessarily wait till the end. I'm totally happy to post a 12, 13, 15x score in the middle of the card and see what happens. But to me, that just depends on how I see the card and where I think my best opportunity is to just effectively make one play, hopefully, and get to the number.
Okay, so you're pretty narrow. Like, is that hard for you to kind of walk away from a lot of stuff, or do you just pretty much only have like one option, usually a weekend?
No, so I usually have sort of like 3 to 4 races tagged when I go through a card in an ideal world, and the race I end up picking depends on the betting. You can make your best guess about what the odds are going to be going into the going into the day, but sometimes I tag a race and the horse 4 to 1, 5 to 1 on the morning line looks like based on the will pays it's going to be 2 to 1 or even shorter. I may pass and go to my next opinion and hope that the board is a little better, that which will enable me to get a score that will hopefully win the contest.
Okay, so you're flexible. I think that's a good discipline to be able to walk away. I think that's something we all struggle with, on the when you really like something, and even if he goes from 4 to 3, it kind of gets in that dicey range, and then you have the odds drops, and it's tough. But why don't I don't really know too much about you. I know you're an East Coast guy. You're in New York. Did you go to Belmont?
I did not go to the Belmont. I'm hoping to go next year when it's back very local.
Mm.
I will probably I'll go up to Saratoga at some point this summer. In general, I'm a big horse racing fan. I probably call it, I don't know, 4 to 5 times a week, depending on the time of year and which meets are going. I'll probably call it either Wednesday to Sunday or Thursday to Sunday. But in general, I don't go live that much, especially during contest days. I much prefer to be at home with my computer and my iPad and, be able to really track what's going on. I feel like the couple times I've done live events live, it's just much harder to focus and to really, hone in and, stay in it.
Couldn't agree more. I wish I would have listened to myself a couple Breeders' Cups ago and a couple other Breeders' Cups ago, and um,
Yeah.
I think there's an interesting level that you get to, and we are our own biggest critics, right? And we're gonna scrutinize the heck out of us about what we're doing right and wrong. And I feel like the silence of just being in the same place that you're always in when you're making these weird decisions or tricky decisions. Sometimes you audible. I don't know if do you audible much in your tournaments, or do you pretty much have your 3 or 4 races and that's it, and you don't switch?
No, look, if I see something on the board that I think just is totally unexpected and what I think brings a lot of value, or at least value in the context of a contest, I'll play. Sometimes I regret that, sometimes I don't, right? When it doesn't work out, you kick yourself and you say, that was really dumb. That was not what I planned to do before the tournament. And maybe you watch the next couple races and the race you had tagged and the play you were going to make or thought you were going to make ends up coming in, and, you get pissed at yourself. But, it's just the way this goes. It's, you have to trust your gut, I think, at some level. And you can't look back. You have to risk a lot in order to win, especially these contests with really big fields.
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting phrase I hear kind of a lot from people, not just in horse racing, gambling, but the idea of trusting your gut. Um, I I can attest to being like a healthy guy. I like my gut. I think I take good care of it, so I feel like it's clean. Um, but I think someone like you who's won the Grade One Gamble in 2024, we can come touch on that in a minute or two. But I also like, I think you can trust your gut after you've earned it. Like you've earned the right to trust it. And I think that's like this thing where you'll zig one way, you'll zag that way. But I think after enough repetition, 5, 10 years, then I'm a full subscriber in that. But you still got to make sure like what you're capable of. Like in your instance, if I asked you like when you play tournaments, what percentage of the time do you expect to win? Like if you played 2 entries in a tournament, do you expect to win 5% of the time, 10% of the time? Like how do you quantify this stuff too? Are you thinking about it like that?
Um, I think not really, but if you ask me like what percentage of the time do I think I'm going to win the BCBC, I would say 20 or sorry 5% of the time. So like 1 out of 20.
Okay.
A tournament like with a smaller field on express bets or something like that, I think probably a slightly larger percentage of the time. I think the way that I play, you're effectively, let's say you're going all in twice on win bets. It could be a 4-to-1 and a 2-to-1, and you win. And so just the implied odds of that, it's going to come in, 10% of the time, 12% of the time. So if you're playing correctly, you should be winning, at that clip, I think.
Yeah, well, if it's a 2 to 1, 1 out of 3 times 1 out of 5, 1 out of 15, closer to 7 or 8%. But that's even
Yeah.
based on the public's odds, which that there's a takeout, so it'd be closer to 5 or 6. But yeah, I know it's an interesting like calculus to think about. Like, do you have like a template, or is it pretty much you'll play 10 to 1s, 20 to 1s, 2 to 1s, exactas, doubles? Do you just kind of go wherever the wind blows you, or is it just based on some kind of a structure you've worked on?
So I almost exclusively bet to win or play exactas.
Hmm.
Um, and that could flip. Like sometimes I'll do a win bet at the beginning of the contest if I like a horse that's call it 5 or 6 to 1, and it'll give me a big enough bankroll to maybe structure some exacta plays towards the end to try to win. Or I could play the exacta first if there's one that I really like. That's what I did this past weekend, and then play a win bet later
Okay.
to just put me over the top. I almost never play doubles. That's just because you can't really have as good a sense as what the price is going to be in doubles. Both because the pools are smaller, so the odds change more drastically as you get towards the bell. So it's pretty tough to predict. And without the will pays of the second race, it's hard to really know, how the computers are going to play it right at the end.
I love how you talk about this stuff, man. It's great to meet you. It's great to meet someone who's so entrenched in this, and you understand the complexities of the anxieties of not getting your bet in at the right price and then losing the tournament and things like that. That I don't know. So I'm not gonna. I played in the Belmont tournament and finished third, and I played a try and I smashed it, but I didn't smash it hard enough. And I thought I was gonna get to about 55, 60, and I got to 44, and then I was screwed. And
Yeah,
and so
I was wondering what you played in that contest because you hit on Bookham Dano, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I saw your score and I couldn't figure out what you did given the way that the race finished to get to the to get to that number. But
Yeah.
yeah, basically the way that in that contest on the Friday, I hit call it like a 4-to-1 win bet on I think on Friday to get me to 16 or 17,000.
Mhm.
And I was
Oh, nice.
waiting.
You were up that high. I didn't. I'm sorry. I don't even remember that you were
Yeah,
crushing. Good job. Like, where were you? Walk me through that tournament for a sec.
yeah. So I hit a 4-to-1 win bet on the Chad Brown turf horse that narrowly beat the French horse on Friday late in the day.
Yep.
So that was with one entry. I had a second entry, which I didn't really, fire anything. And then I just sat there and I waited until I think it was, I don't know if second or third to last race. So I sat there with 17,000 until the second or third to last race, and I bet on the foreign shipper in the turf race that went off at like 2-1 to try to win the contest. I think it was the second to last race, and obviously it didn't run anywhere, and so I lost, call it 18 or 19,000 in that race. I used my one entry to play to win, and I played some exactas just in case. And so that contest, it didn't work out, and then the very next weekend, almost the exact same strategy worked perfectly. So you got to keep going if you're playing the right way.
Yeah, that's so I mean that was that Chad Brown foreign horse, so went off at like 2 something. So you had probably a 25% chance of winning the tournament or finishing first or second. Like that's exactly how to do this. Like I think people would learn a lot from, I mean, obviously you got to be aggressive. That's one thing that's hard for people to learn is, when do you be aggressive? You shouldn't be aggressive if you don't know you're good at being aggressive. Then you're just going to be donating money into the prize pool. But I like the way that you play, man. That's cool. Why don't we walk through? I'm going to bring up the scores real quick on here, and I want you to tell me. I mean, I don't really expect you to tell me anything that I shouldn't know, but out of privacy. But when you finished, why don't you walk people through the Monmouth tool, like the rules again, so people, and then walk me through your strategy going into it.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a one-of-a-kind format, effectively. So it's a $2,000 buy-in. They take half your money and put it towards the prize pool. And I think what makes this tournament unique is how many, call it prizes or people that they pay out. So they pay out almost, I forget the exact number, but maybe 30, 35 people. You have to play 5 minimums, like most live money contests. But my strategy for minimums is to just try to survive them. If I can, I try to get my first play in before I have to play a minimum, which is what I did at Monmouth. And so what I did last weekend was, in the third race, I played an exacta on both of my entries. So I was guaranteed to lose on one and win, or both, I guess. But I ended up hitting on one and losing on the other. I played a straight favorite over 2 different horses on each entry. So I played $1,000 exacta on both entries. And sort of like what I said about the doubles ended up happening in this exacta. To me, it was the third race. It looked like almost like an easy exacta on paper. It was a bunch of speed horses and 2 horses that were going to come off the pace. So I played the best speed horse on top with the other 2 beneath it. Those exactas got cut almost in half in the last tick, which is annoying on the one hand. I thought I was going to get to like 8,000 or 9,000 instead of 5,000. But it also made me pretty confident that it was going to hit, I guess, in some respects. So that play took me to 5,000 approximately. I played show bets all the way into the second to last race. At that point, I was in, I think, third place. I had 5,000. I think you were in first, maybe at 7,000 or a little bit above 7,000.
Yeah.
And so the way that I thought about it going into that race was, I thought 5,000 was definitely not going to be enough to finish in the top 5, which is where the extra cash prizes were.
Yeah.
So I thought for sure I was going to fall out of the top 5 if I just kind of sat. I thought I was borderline to stay in the top 10 to get a BCBC seat. I thought maybe if I played conservatively, I could just get a BCBC seat. But I didn't think it was guaranteed. And it turns out, in hindsight, I mean, plenty of people hit that last race, way more than I think is typical, actually. So my score would have ended up closer to like 15th place, which would have been, I think, pretty much a disaster from my perspective. So look, so I thought really I needed to play, and it was going to be like the way I handicapped the race. To me, it was a 2-horse race between the Brad Cox, that was a pretty big favorite, and East Avenue. And so the way I thought about it was sort of like what I wanted to make sure I did is if I hit the race, I wanted to get a big enough score to give me a good chance to win, to get the 25,000 that was on top. I think second was maybe 13 or 14,000. Um, and so with 5,000, right, you're the first thing you're doing is you're guessing where the horse is going to go off. So I thought it would go off somewhere between 2 and 3 to 1. Um, so my thought process was twofold. One, like how much do I have to bet to win to make sure I get to a number that's high enough to give me a good chance to win, even if I don't play the last race. And so my fear was that if I bet less than my full bankroll on East Avenue and it went off at 2 to 1, like if I bet, call it like 35 or 4,000, maybe, and it goes off at 2 to 1, maybe that score of 12,000, 13,000 isn't high enough going into that last race. And really my only other like play aside from that win bet would have been the exacta with Cox on top and East Avenue beneath, sort of as a backup. So if I would have played, call it like a $3,500 win bet and then a $1,500 exacta, that exacta was paying 6 to 1 or so. And so I didn't think there was a way to structure that play to give myself the score I needed with sort of either result. And so what I settled on was just, the best thing to do was just to push all in on the one win bet and, put a score on the board that would be tough for people to catch. I think it's tough for two reasons. One, given the prize structure, there's probably half the field who wouldn't even try, maybe more.
Yep.
They're just happy with their prize and they don't want to risk $3,000 or $4,000 in the last race to try to win. And two, it was a race that was, I thought the last race there were, call it like 4 or 5 horses that could win. And so it wasn't an easy race for someone to really, push and win. There was no big 2 to 1 favorite that someone would feel comfortable, hopefully, putting $6,000-7,000 on. So it worked out. Obviously, I had to sweat out the stretch run. It was a tight finish, but that was my thought process going into the play.
I think a lot of people could learn a lot from you. This is as good as it gets. Not only did you win, but and the anticipation of the odds anxiety, not getting to your price and buffering enough if the horse went down to 2, genius. So much respect, recognizing that if you don't spend that extra 1,000 on that horse to win or 2,000 and you get in that kind of like purgatory place and you're kicking yourself later. So props for pulling the trigger and aiming for the throat, and then also realizing the end of the card was garbage, recognizing that you're not going to be able to recover if you don't finish it there. That was clutch, in my opinion. I think we were on the same page of looking at that last race. So to me, the big question I have for you is when you're wrestling with that final decision on the win bet or the exacta, why did you, and again, I don't care. Why would you decide to bet that horse to win? Obviously the horse, I'm not talking about his past performances. I mean, he ran next to Magnitude and he was decent, but like why not bet the exacta? Why not take the more favorable horse with your horse in second, or play the exacta box there? Did you think about playing the exacta box instead? Or I know you mentioned a little bit about that, but I mean, what was your, because you could bet the exacta box and probably still get to the similar score, right?
Maybe something like 3,000 on sort of the 6-9 and then 20 something hundred on the 9-6, maybe. But to me, like I actually really did think the horse was, call it like a 2 to 1 or 5 to 2 shot to win. The win bet is the most straightforward way to get to any score. And, you have to be comfortable that you can lose, obviously, if the horse doesn't win, but, you can also lose playing exactas. I've done that many times. So, you just have to, it takes practice, I would say. because there's something comforting about feeling like you're playing 3 or 4 different results when you're playing exactas.
Mhm.
But it's probably like false comfort when it comes to actual like odds to win and hit a big number.
Yeah, like I said, I saw you go. I thought you overshot, and I was like, "What's this guy doing?" Now I understand why you did that. I think the things that go through my mind are optimization. Like, how can I optimize my models or my decisions so that I can deliver and get from, from a certain percentage up another percentage? And I think, I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on you. What I wanted to discuss is the price structure. And again, there's always okay. I think there's always value in these tournaments, right? So if you can deliver, at a strike rate between, I would say 7 to 10% on tournaments, or maybe even 6 or 5, depending on the tournament structure. Um, it behooves you to go for first or second. I slam on that. I don't think that's for everybody. I think for certain elite players or hard knocking analysts, it makes sense. But when you see this price structure, I'm not criticizing it at all. I think there's different strokes for different folks. But like when you see this, I want you to kind of give me your opinion, twofold. One, do you think this is good to have a tournament like this in general? Given that, like in my opinion, you've got, let's see, how much money is in this thing? Let me go to the top again. So you got 379 entries, and what is the total prize money? It was 500, but that we put in.
So it's 379,000. I think in the prize pool is 1,000 goes to
Okay.
the bankroll, 1,000 to the prize pool.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was afraid of. So you kind of know where I'm going with this, but that's just so $379,000 is donated by the community. Now, keep in mind that wouldn't be there if they didn't have this structure. There's not going to be
Agreed.
379
Agreed.
people.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
They
So
will. I agree.
yeah. So you might get. I don't even know. It's Monmouth. Not to say that Monmouth doesn't have it, but this was there's some stuff. And I had a call but I wanted to ask you, so let's cut it in half. Let's say half the players don't play if the price structure is not this, then it's 180K. You get 60K for finishing first, and some of that was your own money too, by the way. So let's say 45K you got for finishing first. On a scale of 1 to 10, given your performance, do you feel like are you grateful? Are you happy? Are you content? Or do you kind of feel like you kind of deserve more? And I think this is an open-ended discussion that we need to have as horse players and say, what can we involve with the tournament directors in our goals? And maybe there's all kinds of different ways to structure this stuff. But I'm just curious, how does it sit with you knowing that 79K was put into this thing and you ended up getting 45K roughly out of it?
Yeah. Look, I mean, from the way I play, and I think the sort of rate of success I have, I would much prefer, obviously, a more top-heavy payout structure. But to the point you made, I don't think there's any chance there's anywhere near 379 entries
Yeah.
if it was a different price structure or a more typical price structure, call it. It's probably half that. The people at Monmouth do a great job, so it's hard to, argue with, I guess, the success that they've had in this tournament. Right. The only other contest the whole year that has this many people is the BCBC. So they're doing something right. But when you win a contest over 400 people, would you rather win 100 or 150,000? Definitely, right? And feel like you deserve it. It's hard to win a contest with 400 people. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely prefer a more top-heavy structure in the abstract. But it's hard. It's hard. I mean, this is just a unique contest, right? I mean, people like us have some advantage in a contest like this when out of the 379 entries, I don't know how many do you think are actually even trying to win versus trying to get 25th so that they get an NHC seat or feel like a winner. It's probably there's maybe 100 150 people out of the 379 who are actually
Yeah.
even playing to win, maybe. So in some ways, it's maybe a slightly easier tournament to win than it, looks on paper, given the number of entries.
Yeah, I think 100 to 150 is kind of average for a small tour. I mean, that might be on the high side for $1,000 contribution. So if you played Express Bet or some of these others and you're, putting in 1K to clear 45 for first, it's not bad. That's why I thought it was worth it to play myself because, if you're going to pull it down 1 out of 10 times and you're putting in 1K, and that means you're sacrificing 10,000, and if you can get an extra 25. I honestly, when I did the first show when I was in New York, I didn't expect there to be 379 people. I thought there would be like 200 or something like that. I mean, so that was a added bonus. It's I think creativity and difference is super healthy so that you can attract more players. So like I'm coming from the place where I want to save the game. I want more people to do more for the horse players and have more of a more community, a competitive community, which is really important because if you notice in horse racing, it's kind of like super polite, like almost too polite in some ways versus other games. But polite is great, but there's also times for rivalries and so sometimes, I might, challenge players to do more and to do less. But I think there's some fundamental takeaways, which is number one, if you are hitting between 5 and 8%, I think playing to the win in this tournament was the strategy to create the highest ROI. And in my case, I ended up finishing 7th, I think. But I was going for a top 5 finish to try and get, I'll go for first. But did you check the scores from last year or the last couple of years?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, you had good intuition, but at the same time, like the scores, I think one time in the last 4 years had eclipsed 10K. So I thought, there's several years 8 to 9K was doing well. So when I targeted my 8K or whatever, I didn't think it was necessarily going to get me home, but I was like, it'll get me top 5. And then it ended up getting me 7th. But I had a nice surprise in my email when I opened this up and I saw that it was paying, all the way down to like, 35 seats or whatever it was. So I think the takeaway is go for the win to get that 45K. And then if you can't, then you don't even have to get like more than 7x. Like, and I lucked out and made 20 grand, finished with 6 something, I think 7 or something. And then I get like, the 4 grand it costs to play. And then, about 20 something K, but like, I was very content not going for it in the East Avenue race. Because the way I viewed it, and tell me if you sometimes do this too, but I was looking at it like, I've got like 7K. I'm going to finish, I hope, in the top 5, which is a BCBC seat, which is another 10K. And the cash is sitting there, in the high 7, 8, 9s, right? Not necessarily as this high, but I was like, I'm sitting on 7K and I'm sitting on around another 20K. So if I want to bet to win this thing, do I want to risk $27,000 to try and get to first to earn an extra 20 grand? You follow that logic?
Yeah, no, totally. I think if I was in your seat, I would have played it differently. I think what helped me or what made my play make sense was the fact that I expected my 5,000 to end up closer to 10th place than 4th place or 3rd place, where I was sitting at the time I made the play. And so to me, I was making a $5,000 bet on a, call it 2.5 to 1 shot, in order to win, 30 grand extra.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was a no-brainer, based on where I was. If my first exacta had ended up paying 8,000, 9,000, I probably would have finished, 4th or 5th in the contest. I probably would not have made a big play, or maybe not even played at all, towards the end.
So you had how much money going into that you had 5,000?
I think like 5,200, maybe, roughly.
52. Yeah. So it's a very interesting intellectual dilemma, because you can stand pat at 5,200. Let me bring that up again, and I will share that screen. And let's see the scores one more time. And again, with this many players, it's really hard to anticipate, where it's going to be the drop off. Now,
Yeah,
I think
you could see how many players hit the last race. I mean, it was, I think, a very unusual,
yeah,
very unusual for so many people to hit the last race for as much as they did, I think.
Yep. It is unusual, and it's interesting to see what they were targeting. Like I said, the last 4 years, it was like 8,000, 9,000. 1 year I think had 10,000. 1 year had 8,000. So to me, it was like the numbers were probably much higher. I'm sure by at least 30 to 50 players potentially contributing to this. But
That's right.
this is great gameplay. These guys going for this, in that last race, just to try to make an extra, anywhere in here, you're getting about 20, 19, 18, 17, 16K. So you're getting in the 20s here, basically between 15 and 20K if you finish in the top 10. And so that is the most interesting piece of this equation is where do you sit pat? Because if you're sitting here in the fives, I think you're safe to say what you said before. You got to go for it. You got to, at this point, like if you're in the fours, it's not even it's a no-brainer. It's literally a no-brainer because I would not imagine that you think you're going to get an extra $5,000 or whatever it is. And even if you get the $5,000, you're betting 10 grand to try to win, 45 or an extra 40. So that makes sense to me. The fuzziness, the trickiness is in this 6 area. Like what would you have done if you had 6K or 7K? Would you have played it differently? Like, how would you have thought about this if you were like, just think about it. And again, I know you liked East Avenue, but like if you're sitting there at 6K or if you're sitting there at 7K and you know that there's 400 people in there and you're staring at 15 to 20 grand if you just sit, like where walk me through your mindset.
My best guess as to what I would have done is I would have played sort of a basket of bets as opposed to just pushing all my 7,000 in this imaginary world in on the win bet. Maybe I would have still played a $5,000 win bet or, maybe even a little bit lower than that. And in my situation, the reason why it didn't really make sense for me to go a little bit lower than the 5,000 was I didn't think I could do anything with the $500 to get to the score. But if I had, 7,000, maybe I do play a $4,500 win bet or a $4,200 win bet, whatever it is. And when you still have another 2,800 or 2,500 sitting behind that, you can put together a basket of bets that gets you to a winning score. I mean, maybe that's what I would have done, but it's hard to really know since I wasn't really faced with that decision.
Do you ever try to do that and put yourself in scenarios in advance to make sure you know what you will do to help like guide you in advance of being in those tough spots on the fly?
I don't do that, but to me that was the steepest part of the learning curve to me for these contests. It's pretty easy to figure out like just push an opinion and get to a score, but what it takes, what takes the most practice in these contests, and obviously, I'm still not perfect at it by any means, but when you get towards the end, the gameplay strategy towards the end is by far, I think, the most difficult thing to master, when it comes to these contests.
Yeah. It's always, I mean, I think it is and it isn't. It's everything's a paradox in this, right? It's like you can come up with some math. To me, it's like full yeses, full no's, and then there's that gray area where you're like, what am I gonna do? And how much do I love it? Obviously you cared about East Avenue. He's a horse that'll be part of your life until you die. Even if the money is part of this, it's always the majority of it. But the fact is, you got to get like a pendant, or get one of those street signs and like cut it down, or pay some kid to like break it off and put it in your man cave. But I think that's the question that I'm always asking when I'm even looking at players. And now that that this whole community is obsessed with sharing, picks and plays and things like that. I found it really interesting that, in the rounds to go, with 2 races left, I think I was in first or second. Was I
I
in
think you were
first?
first. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I didn't expect to win. I knew that I was going to finish maximum fourth, but I thought to myself, okay, I have basically around, 8K plus 20 something K. So actually I made more than 20K. I actually made like 25 grand. I thought it was like 20, but profit. But I noticed that somebody behind me who had around 6K bet it all on chalk and bet exactas with chalk. And I think it's a very interesting conversation for players when you're in a position near the top and you're sitting on, like we we're saying, 6 grand plus at least 15 more grand, maybe 20, right? So you're really not betting 6, you're betting 25K on chalk on an exacta. And I find this to win an extra 20 grand. And that's where it gets really fuzzy for me, is when you're in that gray area. 4 grand, I wouldn't even think about it. 5 grand, 80%, 90% of the time I'm doing that, especially us, right? But that's where I think horse players need to have some real deep conversations with, when you're playing with real money and you're factoring in the prize money. Like I remember telling somebody, Matt Miller, when he had the partnership with the gentleman who bet on Flightline. Who was that? Was that Drew, or was that yeah? So, and I mentioned, when you're betting that 70 or 80 grand, you're not just betting 70 or 80 to win. I think that's what he bet, right? Was that about
Something like 90, maybe even. Yeah,
90?
you're betting 250 or 300,000, whatever second place would have paid, right?
Exactly. That's it. You're betting. Let's say you get passed. You're not going to get passed probably by more than 2. And even if the difference between second and third is around 100 grand, so you're betting 200,000 on Flightline. Okay, and you're going to win that extra money, and getting even money instead of 3 to 5 to some people is a gift. So I understand that logic, as long as you understand that logic. But I think there's a gap here that some of these players are missing in the risk that they're taking. Because when I'm in these situations, and you saw it in full Technicolor, like, I'm not going to bet at 8,000 more than a few $100s, because I don't like those last 2 races. And I'm going to take my shot. And you still would have got me. I probably would have finished third, because I still wasn't convinced that, like you said, these players, they just want an NHC seat. They don't really care. This isn't about the money in first. And it's not even that much anyway. It's not necessarily worth it. So anyway, I think that there's some real deep intellectual conversations that can be had, now that everyone enjoys talking about what they're showing in their picks and stuff. But I just found it fascinating that the guy in second or third behind me with those 2 races to go would risk it all. Like, I would never do that. But I mean, again, risk appetites. Even if I loved a horse, unless you're going to get me on a 50% horse, like, I just can't justify risking 25 grand to make an extra 20 grand. But again, this is one style of tournament. Are you comfortable with the BCBC, just because this is new news, paying out to 25th place? Or do you think that the prize money should be higher than 450K by now? Or do you care? Or what are your thoughts on the BCBC?
Yeah. Look, to me, the most obvious thing in racing is that the winner of the BCBC should get $1 million. I don't think changing the payout, I don't know what they paid out, 20 people to 25 people, meaningfully, changes the payout structure. In some ways, I think the easiest change for them to make is probably to take the 10 grand, keep it at 10 grand, but instead of giving you 7,500 to play with, give you 5,000 to play with. You've instantly doubled the prize pool, and you could just put that all on first place, and it could go from roughly 500 to $1 million. And you could still pay out 25 people and give people who are happy to get 25th place, a little something. But to me, that's the easiest change. that would, I think, meaningfully enhance the contest and be good for the top players.
I love your mindset, brother. That that's genius. You solved it. You literally solved it. Because I don't think if you surveyed the players, they would like that, because committees never work. So I do believe an executive leadership is required to, launch that kind of a decision. You could do baby steps and do 500. If you did $500 at 500 people, that's what is that, 25K? No, that's a quarter of a million right there. So I think you could start with that and just say, is everyone comfortable with putting another, I mean, not everybody, you just say it, you just do it. You just say 60, 7K, let's go. Because if you did more than that, I think that people would just, this is horse racing community, man. Everybody loves to hate everybody, and everybody
it's hard to know, right? But in Monmouth, they take half your money away, and 400 people still sign up. I get that, like a $2,000 buy-in is different than a $10,000 buy-in, but so many people are just qualifying into the BCBC anyway through, $150 pick and praise or whatever. It's the people who are actually putting up the 10 grand either don't care about the 10 grand and probably wouldn't be thinking that hard about it, or are players who would be happy to have the prize pool larger because they think it would benefit them. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
I don't imagine very many people are putting up the 10 grand. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe fewer people qualify than I think, but I would have expected most people who are willing to put up the 10 grand to either be indifferent because 10 grand means nothing to them, or to understand the dynamics and think that a bigger prize pool is better.
I think there's probably less than 20%, well, maybe 25. I'm going to say on the higher end, because there's two types of players in the BCBC to me. There's the people that are going for it no matter what, and they're going to zero out. And I don't think that's probably more than 15%. And some people might even say that's high. But I'm saying, like, there's another additional 10% that I think will go for it if they get in position. And when I say position, I don't mean betting 50,000 or 40,000 or 30,000 on a horse to win or anything, but I do think there's some people that would start betting $500 trifectas and, $500 or $1,000 exactas and things to get home. So I do think it'd be hard to get more than 25% of people on board with this, but I think we're in a time in horse racing where, the tracks are going to be closing more soon. I'm not saying I know things, but I mean, I can't be more skeptical about California racing than ever. And it's one of the reasons I'm motivated to do something to help here. But when that goes away, and then when we have a few more tracks that start to dwindle, and there's the with the slot stuff and some of the the fact that they're segregated, if they can get segregated or not, then they may exist or sell. But anyway, so to me, I think we need an injection of life into the prize money of the biggest tournament in the world. To me, this is the biggest tournament in the world for all of horse racing, hands down. I think you could get more international people coming over and playing in the BCBC if there was $1 million prize. I think the team does such an awesome job of going to Ascot. And I don't know if you watched much Ascot, but it's just so amazing. And there's so much energy. And the Brits are, I mean, we're, descendants of the Brits. So it's like we have the same blood. They would love to compete in this stuff if they knew it, and they know they're British horses. So they may be betting more on those turf races. There's such an opportunity if the prize money was bigger for first and maybe second too. Maybe you kind of come up and then you make a drop from like fourth and fifth, because fourth and fifth are so high. And it's like, there needs to be a better distribution for, I think you can slam the top three. The top three, I think, should, I don't know, probably be like at least 60%. Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I
mean, I've contributed over like hundreds of thousands of dollars to this thing, and that's not even with the insurance bonus. But back to the insurance bonus, I even believe, to your Monmouth crush, what about having a policy that says if you get to 15K or 20K in this tournament, you get a $20,000 bonus? and that'll encourage you to bet more to get there. And it's an artificial prize money pool, but that's kind of what the BCBC had for years. And then $400,000 later, of all of our money's gone, but they shut it down. But I think there's an opportunity to find another broker that could do that. But I also could see this happening at the smaller tournaments because, I think it's a very interesting question. If somebody says, what if you get to 30K, you can win $500,000, would you go for it?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I mean, I don't understand, I guess the BCBC maybe doesn't have the problem of people not shoving. There's still a lot of people shoving a lot of money into the pools towards the end. But so many of these other tournaments, I mean, they should be incentivized for people to shove big numbers towards the end of the contest, and that doesn't always happen because of the prize pool is not distributed the right way. But it's to the track and to the tournament's benefit or to the host benefit to structure it that way. So I'm not really sure why they don't as much as they should. I guess Monmouth, is sort of the exception given the number of people that they get to show up at their contests anyway. Maybe it evens out for them. But in general, it seems like a no-brainer that they should be incentivizing people to shove towards the end with the bankrolls that they've accumulated.
What do you think is a fair distribution for first and second? If you had a range for, let's say, I'm not talking the small tournaments. Let's say minimum like 1,500, 2K going up, and maybe let's remove the Breeders' Cup. We talked about 60% for the top three because the numbers are really high, and that's a unique one. But in a 2 to 5K tournament, did you like the Belmont structure? 50% for first, 25% for second. Do you think that should be an industry standard, or do you think it should be like, how would you, if you could wave your wand and do this, given obviously you're a top player, but how would you do it?
Yeah, I think the Belmont structure is great. I think it should be at least 50% to the winner. But to me, it sort of depends. To me, it should almost be a sliding scale depending on the number of entries and how much. I think the winner should be getting some, sizable / fun amount of money to incentivize people to go for it. That's the way I would structure it. So I think that's probably somewhere between 40 and 60% to the winner, depending on field size, call it. Mm-hmm. And then, second place, obviously, I think should get good money. I think it's easy to get second place. You could put up a score and somebody can hit a crazy play. I mean, two years ago at the Belmont contest, I was in first going into the last race, and somebody hit Dornick, and I think went from $2,000 to $60,000, and I finished second. So that happens, and I think second place should still get sort of a sizable piece of the prize pool, probably somewhere between like 25-30%, and then third, if it's 10 to 15% for third, great, and then fourth or fifth, I'm kind of indifferent. If people want to pay out 5% or 10% to fourth or whatever, I don't think it's necessary. It's probably not the right thing to do for the contest. I don't think people should be like playing for fourth. I don't think that's in the tournament directors, whoever that is interest, and I don't think it's in the interest of like the most excitement for the contest. But it's also small enough that it's fine.
I mean, in horse racing, we have a 60-20-10 rule for the horses. I kind of love taking that same approach.
Yeah, and being symmetry. I like it.
And it's like, I think it blows my mind that the Breeders' Cup continues to just dwindle on first. And it's a good thing. Everyone loves the Breeders' Cup. Everyone's happy. There's so much going. It's such a great tournament anyway. But I'm asking myself, like, I'm trying to reach out, to them too. I'm like, when is it going to be $500,000? When is it going to be $1 million? Like, the NHC just guaranteed $1 million, and that's out of $3.3 or $4 million total. And that's one position where I'm actually going to go ahead and say that that's okay, because the nature of that tournament is just chaos. And I think that the top 5 should all be probably getting about 70%. But that's because if you're in the top 5, you went on a serious run to get to like $230 over the 3 days or whatever with the win play stuff. Like, I don't necessarily think first should be 50% and second should be 25% than HT, because that's just a completely different animal. It's not cash. It's not same mindset, the same kind of decision making. But I'm glad that we're kind of on the same page with the 40 to 60% for win, maybe to 20 to 25% for second. I know Chris Barr does a pretty good job at Del Mar around that. Are you going to play in the Del Mar tournaments next month?
Not next month. I'm not going to fly to San Diego. I'll play the Pacific Classic contest at the end of the summer.
Okay. I know that, who knows, maybe at some point, depending on what happens with TVG and stuff, if they shut down their production stuff, then Del Mar has a relationship with TVG. Maybe there's a deal that can be done when they can do more stuff online moving forward. But that makes the tournament easier for me, because I don't have a top competitor. And like I said, when you can finish second in the Belmont and first in the Grade 1 Gamble, and then do what you did here, I mean, this is a statement. This is a 20x statement on a 1K tournament and against 400 people is a massive accomplishment. So that's why I reached out to you. I'm like, man, I gotta meet you, and now I gotta try to get in your head, to try to make it harder for you to crush it. But anything else that you wanted to discuss or ask me about or think about within the industry or tournaments or just life?
No, I think we covered it. Yeah.
My last question is probably going to make you laugh, and not that hard, but what is your zodiac sign? Because I'm going to say, since you're so deep in your mind, I'm going to say more than likely an air sign, because you seem like you're just turning the gears. But what are you?
I think Sagittarius. I think I'm right on the border of Sagittarius and Capricorn. So I think I'm just at the end of Sagittarius on December 20th.
Okay. Or just at the beginning of Sagittarius, right? Or no, just at the end. You're right. Yeah. That's that's one of the reasons, because they live a lavish life. They're very extreme people, and turning 1,000 into 19 change is very Sagittarius of you. But like I said, that was very, very cool to see. Like, I like to see players do things like that with conviction. And granted, your hand to me wasn't forced. You knew pretty much what you were doing, like going into that race. And so I commend you, and yeah, we should keep in touch. And I guess we'll have I'm having another big guest on next Friday that I'll announce soon. Not a horse player, but somebody that can definitely he speaks for the horse players, and he does it with his actions, and I think people want to hear what he has to say too. But thanks for popping on, and next time I'll be out at the conference, the Albany Law Conference, speaking on the CAWs with Marshall Graham and another CAW player. So I'll be out in New York. If you happen to go to the races in the first week of August or second weekend, I'll be out there. So maybe we can connect.
Is that Whitney weekend, or is it a different weekend? Do you know?
It's the weekend before. Whitney's the best. I mean, that's the only time I really like to go, but I gotta get out there the week before. So
got it. All right. Thanks for having me. Hopefully I win another contest and you have me back.
Dude, you're gonna win another contest. It's just a matter of time. So yeah, lots of respect, man.
All right. Thanks. See ya.
Take care. Have a good weekend.